All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today, we are so excited to have the founders of Hey Birdie on this episode. We have Jessica and Heather, who we're going to dive deeper into their journey of being moms, being entrepreneurs, and pretty much just being badass. So welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you. Such an honor to be here.
So we always like to kick it off, or at least I like to kick it off. I know Jenny's just gotten used to me always saying this, but it's always a journey. And you ladies have found each other in this large world and come together to create this amazing business. But if you could talk maybe individually too about your paths that have kind of led you to creating Hey Birdie, how you met, how it started, and you can kind of take turns along the way, kind of telling us the story.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to start? I see there's anticipation. Maybe let Heather go. She's ready.
She's got her jazz hands out. So
yeah.
Oh my gosh, right? That's what you'll find out about me is I talk a lot with my hands, and the more excited I get, the bigger they get.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, take me back though. Now I'm nervous. Now where should I start?
So start
completely different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like one of you is from Nebraska, one of you is from Massachusetts. So how did you even meet in the first place? Take us there.
Mm-hmm. The universe was definitely conspiring to bring us together in some way, because when we did meet, it really was like an energetic pull, and that we were hustling, getting our toddlers to our parents' day out program. And so, you're in just that hamster wheel of life where every day you're running the schedule by the minute. And at this particular program, we had to volunteer on the same day, and we kept noticing each other in passing and drop off. I had the kiddo that was crying all the time, so Jess would give me the empathetic eyes and be like, "Oh, someday." And I would see her doing her thing, and I was so attracted to her energy. And one day, it came together. And when we came together, it was like an instant confession of this craving or this urge to break out of that hamster wheel and find something more within ourselves as women, not as mothers, not as our side hustles, not as wives, not as pillars of the community, but really who we were, and get back there. Yeah. And so we wanted that space to get curious again, and that's where all the magic of being a human being is. The joy and the wonder is when you can have that consistent space to be curious. So we found each other and we're like, do you want more? I want more. Let's do this. And we kind of did a little discussion on what we could do. And so we teamed up with another mom, and we talked about bringing women together at least once a month to do just that, to hold each other, to witness one another, and to tap into the things that we were curious about, whether it was experiencing something, learning more about something, learning, dancing again, whatever it was, to just create this checklist of curiosities that we could tackle together.
That's awesome.
So that's how our first women's group was birthed.
So you were both. So I got my first question though. So you guys were both moms. Were you full-time moms? You both were just being moms? And I say just being moms. We're never just moms. But did you have careers at the time too that you were kind of juggling and feeling unsatisfied with, and that was the spark of we want to do more?
Yes, we were both juggling, I would say, multiple careers. I just recently retired from nonprofit management after 20 something years, and so at that time I was probably juggling 5 or 6 different contracts within that space. And Heather was also managing her own contracts, but in a different industry, in the fitness industry. And so in addition to doing the mom thing and volunteering at the school thing and trying to be good wives, we were also trying to maintain our careers where we had them when we entered into motherhood. Mm-hmm. And then wanting, it's gripping on for dear life. I think one day I explained to Heather, I feel like I'm being strangled and the tip of my toe is touching the ground. And that's the only reason I'm alive right now is because of my tip of my toe. And that's a shitty feeling to live by. And so we thought that if we sprinkled in just a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of fun, that would help mitigate the strangulation feeling.
Mm-hmm. And did it immediately, or did it take time?
Well, I'll speak for me on this. It took a lot of time to let go into it and be like, okay, I can let go and be here for that. And then once it became, and we say this to birds that are new to Hey Birdie, once you know that space, that 2 hour space is on your calendar, you almost like build up to get there to be like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm not in control. I don't have to be in control. Nobody needs me. I'm just looking at myself and at my small flock here of 10 to 12 women. And it starts to become that sacred spot for you. So the women's group that we started that Heather mentioned, we've met on the same day for 8, 9 years, the fourth Wednesday of every month. And so some of those gatherings can be like a volcano of explosion, motions, what's been going on, etc. But you know that you don't have to come in and be like, hi, Jenny. How are you? How are your kids? And you can be like, fuck your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's your heart?
Yeah. So you probably look forward to that every month because it is a massive, just, it's like a little vacation built into your day, your week, your month, whatever. Yeah.
It's a ritual. So as where you were going, like, did it happen right away? Absolutely not, because rituals don't. But once we found that groove, that stride, we all show up ready to go, ready to drop in, ready to do the deep dive conversations, not the playground talk.
So is it tied with, so let's kind of, I guess, fast forward a little bit to Hey Birdie now. Is it tied to events that you're doing, or is it strictly like you meet somewhere and you really do just like conversations go where they go, or is there a theme? How is it all kind of structured?
It is tied to all kinds of different experiences. So we bring women together to gather in community and have that tight-knit community, that space where you can have those deeper conversations and unique experiences. But we are also elevating and amplifying other women-owned businesses. So we enroll a number of different practitioners and facilitators in the area to bring in all kinds of different experiences, whether they're rooted in, whether they're more educational in manner, whether they're more of an exchange, whether they're more of a type of creative expression. But everything is rooted in authentic connection, compassion, and curiosity.
Very cool.
And to build on that, Lori, our main offering right now is called Flight Clubs. And so that's a monthly gathering. And like we said, it's a 2-hour window each month. And you fly with the same flock of 10 to 12 women for 12 sessions or 12 months, whatever best registers with your body as being okay, sessions or months. And like what Heather just said, then we put those experiences within those containers.
And then is it virtual or in person or both, like a blend?
In person.
In person. Okay. And how did that go? Like when everything was shut down, like how did you continue on? Did you did you meet? Did you go virtual, or how did you manage that shift?
So with our own personal women's group, we did do the Zoom thing. And while we found so much value of still having that connection, we were also, Heather and I were like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is not filling that cup of connection and like even the tangible, like we were all experiencing during that time, like needing to touch other people. And really that was the space within Hey Birdie being born. And what I always like to joke with Heather, like, what were we thinking when we decided to start a business based on connection when like the government was saying no connection? So we're like, let's get together in person. I'm going to say it's our mother's intuition that we knew what people needed. We knew what we needed. And so even though our women's group's been going on that long, Hey Birdie is newly 3 years old.
Okay.
But I think that's pretty awesome because although, the virtual side, there was some connection, it was probably even more exciting to meet those people in person after building that kind of online relationship. You then got to really, dive in and meet them in person and build on that bond. So let's go back to you ladies being moms. You both have kiddos and you both have 2 girls. I'd like to learn more about how old they are, how they've kind of inspired and empowered you, and as all kids do, drive us nuts at times to, kind of figure out our own self, I think, and how we need to disconnect as a mom and, find our passions, our group, our flock. So yeah, if you guys want to chat a little bit more about your kiddos and how they've helped inspire you, that would be great. Jessica, you can go, or Heather.
So we do this thing where we trade off answering. When there's a pause like that, it's because I'm like, it's Heather's turn, so I'm just pausing and letting her answer. And it's something we've developed over time, so Zoom isn't awkward.
Lori and I are still figuring it out.
Well, there you go. Here's a tip.
Yeah.
Here's a tip. It is your turn, Heather. Do you want to go or?
Sure. Our kids are really the inspiration behind all of this, the true why, as far as our intention is to not allow them to get to their 30s to have that, wait a second, I need and I want more moment. Like, let's start now. And we want them to see and witness just how powerful and important community is. So they see us and they see how much we look forward to it. In fact, I loved mentioning why I was doing what we were doing with our women's group to my daughters. And they would discuss and share how happy I was when I came home, or, oh, mom needs to go do shebang tonight because of XYZ. Or, you should share this with the ladies at shebang tonight, mom. Make sure you talk about that. So just that idea of this kind of ritual and gathering with women was so important. My oldest is a teenager. My youngest is about to go into middle school. So that idea that this mean girl, like, rite of passage is necessary, is like this way of being, we want to challenge and be like, actually, we don't have to continue to accept this. We can actually rage against this and show what happens when you do value collaboration over competition, and when you can be vulnerable and be safe in the company of other women and other girls. So that's really what we're so committed to, is ending that, so that our girls don't have to go through these processes, or these mean girl drama bullshit. Is this G-rated?
No, you can say the fuck all you want.
Yeah.
We encourage it.
Fantastic. I mean, can you be a badass mom without saying fuck?
No. I know that was
I had a moment. Yeah, I had a moment. It might have been yesterday, but I did say the fuck word because my son, I was like, I said it in a way that I didn't think he was gonna necessarily hear me, and he did. I have a 7-year-old, and he's just like, "Mom, you need to never say that word again." And I'm like,
that's not gonna happen.
Right. You're right. Inside, I'm like, fuck. So sometimes it just comes out,
right?
I had a neighbor when my girls were little. I had a neighbor who just let any word fly, and her theory was, like, if my girls ask the question, like, why do you say that? Like, it was just, she said it all the time, so it wasn't even a question anymore. But if her kids said anything about it, she was like, that's a word adults can say, kids can't say it. Like, it's just not appropriate for kids. And that was her thing. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the same. So I've always cussed in front of my kids. Like, it just is what it is. And also my kids' friends, I'm like, that's the way I am. And that's what's going to come out of my mouth. So, but you can't say it. And here's why. So maybe
it's just so nice. Being from the East Coast, fuck is just part of my alphabet. Yeah. And never held back with my children and with my friends' children, and they're used to it. But they don't. If their parents swear, they're like, "I can't believe you just said that." But if I do it, they're like,
"Yeah,
that's okay. That's fine. That's how she communicates."
Right.
Like, when my voice is calm and I'm not saying fuck, they're like,
something's wrong.
Look out. Look out.
Get out. Yep. I wanted to add on to Heather's answer in that our girls, what they're experiencing, as she mentioned, in all the realms, inspire a lot of our own programming.
Yeah.
In that we definitely experienced those things when we were in our tween teen ages, and they weren't discussed or addressed, and they're still showing up in our 40s. And so our conversations amongst our children inspire the programming for the adult women. And also we've created a teen flock. When did we start
I
that?
love
April?
that.
Yep. So we brought together a group of our 2 daughters were obviously involved to see how quickly our intention was just to gather information, and they fell in love with each other. And they were from different schools, and their age range was 13 to 15. And they're like, we'll continue, but only if we're with each other. And we're like, oh, okay.
I was going to ask if they were friends. I love that.
Oh, our kids are, yes. But now that whole focus group
Yeah.
flock, they did 12-week program together. And it was just it's so beautiful to watch them and how they really do. I think our kids can sometimes get a bad rap with the social media, which sucks. It is a fucking like devil. But when you do present that container, that opportunity for them of like, we're taking everyone's phones and you're here together, they are so open and so ready to love and hold each other. It's really beautiful.
That's awesome. So I guess one of the questions I have is because, you know, as an entrepreneur in my previous life, also, it's hard. I feel like no matter what you're doing, even when it's amazing, it's sometimes hard to get the word out. And moms, we love to talk and we love to share things that we're, you know, parts of and activities we're doing. But how have you found a way to get a broader reach of women that are joining your group? Not just that word of mouth, but touching people that may have never heard of what you ladies are offering.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, can you please answer that one? Because I'm not sure how we're doing it.
As you have experienced, entrepreneur is so fucking hard.
Yeah.
And finding new creative ways to get people's attention because there's so many distractions available to them. Even like the amount that we put out on Instagram or invest in it, it just falls flat. Like we're not playing at that $1,500 to $3,000 budget level to feed the Instagram monster or algorithm. And so how are we other than word of mouth? Your basic ways, really word of mouth and people talking from their heart about, wow, through Hey Birdie, I really have found my community. I have found the best women of my life and I have found myself.
Yeah.
So the word of mouth is our best.
Yeah. We even have like a unique creative plan to use birds as our marketing.
Oh, I love it.
Like if you see birds, you think of Hey Birdie, it'll all come around.
Maybe
it really brings us to, right? Just look up, just listen.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go back to the bird, like with Hey Birdie. How did you come up with the birds and the theme and flock? And I love that. And I think it's so creative. I'm just wondering like if it was just like an idea and you're like, oh, that's it. Or if you went through a kind of a variation of different animals or like, you know, how you went down that path, right? Like
Totally. I wish we would have took better notes and actually recorded all of our ideas because some were really ridiculous.
Yeah.
but ultimately we look to nature. We look to the cycles of nature. And we're really searching what could encompass what we were doing in this way that really highlighted the importance of community. So I think Jess landed on an article about migrating birds and the way that they fly in the V formation. So as birds are flying in the V formation, they're holding one another to, of course, travel safely and efficiently together. But there's got to be a lead bird, and eventually that lead bird gets tired. And without communicating, that lead bird can fall behind and the next one takes its place and they all continue to travel and hold each other as they get to their next destination. So the more that we read about migrations and how hearing birds sing is a nervous system response that you are safe and that you can be at peace. Like everything that we kept pulling apart from birds was like, yeah, that's it. We are birds.
I feel like animals seem to do better at taking care of each other. There's a thing about elephants too, and when an elephant falls apart, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. It's like, you know, if a female elephant like is giving birth or is vulnerable, all the other female elephants will just surround her until she's ready to come back to, you know, society or whatever. And we don't do that for each other. We just, well, a lot of us don't even share when we're feeling that way, right? Until way after. And even if we do, it's like everybody's so busy, and sometimes don't even know how to hold space for each other, right? It's difficult. It's not easy to sit with someone.
Jenny, I love that you bring up the elephants, because that's called a formation, and I feel like it just so aligns with our V formation as well. And I'm sure there's other packs of animal that have something similar within that element. And I totally agree with you that we don't share. And I think Lori said at the beginning something about like Facebook, Instagram, like the facade out there. But like, how often are you asking somebody, how is your heart today?
Yeah.
And when you switch your question that way, people actually answer the question. They're taken aback at first, but they answer it.
Yeah.
And then also encouraging like, just show up. Don't overthink how or what, or like, would that bother them? I think going across the street and ringing your neighbor's doorbell and giving her a hug is enough. And that maybe takes 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So when women, new birds, show up to your group, do you feel that at first they're hesitant, or they're overly excited to share? Does it take a while to kind of break down that wall of hesitation, or at this point are they like, I'm here, I'm ready, this is my time, I'm ready to just, meet friends and really, get in touch with how my heart is feeling? Or what has been your experience with new members?
I think there's not one set experience. It's situational to the person. Some people are just ready to go and are like, I'm signing up for connection and community, and so I'm going to show up in that way for the give and the receive of it. And some people naturally just want to observe and see what's going on. How deep is Heather going to share? How much is she? Is she going to really go there? And like figuring out where your own comfort level is. We definitely, in our first 2 flight connections, we focus on authentic relating. But we're not wanting people to have that vulnerability hangover where they leave and they're like, like they came to be part of a group and they're feeling less of a group now because they're like isolating and turning in. And so we really just create a space where everyone can show up where they are in that moment. And then we model what that looks like as well, or what it can look like.
Women do have the ability, and I always find this so fascinating. Like when I talk to my husband, if let's say he spent like a whole day with one of his buddies, right? And I'll ask, he comes home and I ask questions. I'm like, oh, how's the wife? How are the kids? What, I don't know. And I would say my husband's probably better than a lot of men, but they don't talk about these kinds of things. And I feel like, I was on a call, and it was a Zoom. It was a woman who invited me into, it's not Hey Birdie, but it's kind of a little community that she created. And I'll tell you what, I had never met these women before. And within an hour, I knew like their entire life story, their divorce, how they rebuilt themselves. I mean, it was amazing. And you come away and you're like, it's empowering. You feel, to your point, like that sense of connection. You're not alone in the world. And so it makes me sad for men because I don't feel like they get that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I totally agree. Like my husband, absolutely the same. Like I will ask him like, so same thing, like, does so-and-so have any kids or married or, what are they like? I don't know. I'm like, well, what do you talk about? Like they just do what they're doing, right? Like if they, so it's just an interesting, like, I just don't think they have the emotional need for connection as deep as we do. And not to say that not some of them do, because maybe there are, but not specifically my husband. I mean, he's a very emotional and tenderhearted man, but I just think in general, like for them, so much of their connections are kind of different. They're more fulfilled in a different way. Do you ladies agree to that, or do you think that
I think it's possible. I certainly don't want to speak for all men.
Right. We're not generalizing all men, just sort of.
But I think even from where we started, what Jess and I were talking about is we wanted more outside of our role. So something that we were so proud of initially is that so many of our flocks knew each other. They didn't actually know what anyone did for a living. And this was like a bragging right of ours. And we were like, oh my gosh, isn't this great that these birds have been together for 4 or 5 or 6 months, and they actually have no idea what one another's professions are.
Yeah.
But they know who each other is. They know how each other makes them feel. They can feel one another in each other's space. And so just that kind of feedback gave us so much more inspiration to keep going, and validation that the spaces that we were creating and holding were working, because it wasn't about the typical conversation as far as what you're doing or where you're going or where you've been traveling, but it's really more about who you are.
Well, it's being versus doing, right? Like most of our conversations are centered around, what are you doing? Where are you going? Everything action oriented instead of where are you right now? You know, how do you feel? And I find, and I've talked about this before with Lori, but life feels like a bell curve to me. Like when you're little, you're more into like, where am I right now? And then you get busy and you're doing. And it's like the top of the bell curve. When you're like middle-aged, you're doing all these things. And then you start to slow down again, and you start to realize how important it is to be and to connect and to feel the earth, beneath your feet or whatever it is. Right. So it's just so interesting. And to know that you came to that conclusion, I mean, fairly young, that's kind of cool.
Jenny, when you talk about the bell curve, I think about my mom, and like I can think of 5 other friends whose moms had a mental break in their 40s. And because they didn't have communities like the one that you mentioned, where you found out that woman or all the women's stories, divorce, death, whatever it might be, they didn't have Hey Birdie. And they were so alone in the processing of raising children, being married, career, not career. And I just am constantly grateful that I don't know where the data point is that was like, fuck that, let's go back to community. But I would love to know so I can give that woman a hug, because that was not sustainable. We were all going to go crazy eventually. And maybe that was the plan, to break us. But when you can look back, and I hope you guys all do once we get off this call, and think about friends' moms, similar-age moms who probably had some sort of mental break. And you may not even know about it because we didn't talk about that shit.
Yeah. Even when I talk to friends now that I knew in high school, they'll share stuff with me. I'm like, I had no idea that was going on in your life, because people didn't talk about that kind of stuff. I feel like, to your point, Lori, with men, I feel like there's a lot of deprogramming with all of us, and more specifically with men, because they have been put in this place where they've had to be in control, take care of the family, like there's so much baggage there. And now they're having to unravel that, and it's going to take longer. So maybe they will end up in a place in, 50 years where they're having, their own little groups of connection. But I think that it's going to take more time for them, because they've got a lot that's, they
got a lot of shit to unpack.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And it's just the role that they've had to play, I guess is what I'm saying, so they have to be more intentional about breaking out of that role.
So I want to ask you ladies, so when we talk about, giving ourselves a break, or, obviously, Hey Birdie allows women to connect, but how do you ladies specifically take a break and give yourself the chance to, either just reconnect with yourself, or activities that you like to do that also bring you your sanity? Because I feel like we have to have those go-to things. I'd love to hear what you ladies do to kind of take a moment for yourselves.
I've lost track, Jess. I think it's you.
I'm laughing because I was hoping you guys saw this hand coming up over my desk to grab the note I wrote, which said, recording a podcast. Please stop.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think you need to have a kid interruption on the Badass Moms podcast, right? You have to be interrupted by your kids.
Dog, cat, whatever.
Yeah, I just had 2 golden doodle show too. Okay, question was, how do we take care of ourselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes, some weeks, some days, we're better at it than others. We'll be totally honest. And I hope that we can get to the point where it's just scheduled on our calendar. To some point we have, right, where we say that on certain days, Heather's a boxer, and we know when that class is. And so we've blocked off our calendar where she can go to that class. And then in turn, that gives me the space to either move my body how I like to, or to read. And it's nice that we have those two spots very intentionally set. We do get into stretches. I want to say like, let's say quarterly, just to be healthy-ish, where we're like, have we had fun in a while?
Yeah.
Because we're always planning and doing these experiences for other women, but we're like, have we enjoyed it?
Yeah.
And so it's a question that we're getting better at asking ourselves and bringing to the table of like, yeah, you need to tap out, you need some fun.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
We've had some better cycles than others. We had a good run once where we were taking each other out on dates every other month, like surprising each other,
Wow,
trying to
fun.
keep things interesting. We fell out of that, but also and we also tried this. So these are entrepreneur things, right? We've also discussed our cycles and where we're syncing and making sure that our work complements our cycles. We do a lot of stuff on camera, so we were trying to decide when we were ovulating so that we could do that, or when we both needed to rest and perhaps should not work together. So so really just knowing more about what each other needs and how to honor that is really important as well.
Well, and Heather, I think you have a background in the health and wellness industry, correct? Like personal trainer, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So do you still do any of that, or is your sole focus now just Hey Birdie, or are you still teaching or training or?
I'm not in the fitness industry in the traditional space anymore. Now I like to say I'm in social fitness.
I like that.
What does that look like for you?
Is Hey Birdie. Social fitness
Okay.
is Hey Birdie.
Okay.
Is building community and working on the way that we show up. Totally.
It's still wellness.
Because it's exercise, right? It's a practice, just like anything else. Mm-hmm.
It's Lori, what type of studios did you own before?
Yeah, so I owned a couple cycling studios in the Denver area. So they were called Epic Ride, and for me, I was always passionate about movement, but more so, I was passionate about people and connection and community. So take all the bikes away, take all the equipment away. It was the people, and I know Jenny knows this too. Like showing up to teach a class. Yes, you're showing up to teach a class and to give people, the motivation. But at the end of the day, it's the people you're surrounding yourself with, getting to know and just truly building connections with that keep them coming back and that motivate you to show up. So for me, just like you ladies, I created a community for, like-minded people that were drawn to certain modalities of fitness. But once everybody showed up in that facility, they found so much more within each other. And I think we have so many examples of friendships that were made at the studio that are still held now 12 years later, which to me, I always look back and I'm like, oh man, I should have, when I look at my bank account, I'm like, damn, I should have used all that money into something else. But then I come back to reality and I'm like, no, I did exactly what I was supposed to do, met the people I was supposed to meet. And, for me, that was more impactful than, making, hundreds and hundreds of studios. But for me, those couple small studios I had, I feel like, not just changed my, outlook on what I'm able to do for others, but just what others are able to do for us. So
I had I have a business with a business partner, and somebody was asking us, we launched an HR business a year and a half ago. And one of the most profound questions that we received was, what do you want your business to be? And it's so funny. I'm like, such a simple question, but she said, do you want it to be, do you want to grow? Do you want to hire people? Do you want to have, potentially places like little businesses in different states that, hubs in different states? How big do you want to be? And then on the other end, do you want it to be something that fulfills you? Something that is, you two are, very involved with all your clients. You're working side by side with them. You're able to meaningfully contribute to your family's bank account, but you're not like scaling, growing, that kind of thing. And both of us, and it offers you the flexibility, right? The flexibility to live a life that you love. And we both instantly said, we want that one. And so, but I thought that was just such an important question, right? And when I look at businesses where they're incredibly successful, a lot of them are because you connect with the people that own it or the people that work there. Or like Laura, your studio, when you walked in there, I mean, you fell in love with the studio, but you fell in love with Lori, and you fell in love with the people, and it was all different kinds of people, and so bringing that to, the world, I think is just a gift.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think you ladies meeting, like you said, the stars align when we meet certain people in our lives, and you two meeting each other on a playground and having the opportunity to have these ideas, which shortly after, like you said, really turned into your monthly group, which then
Mhm.
you grew into something even bigger. The universe knows more than we do sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But so, what are you're in Colorado, you have a couple different locations. I saw that you offer your group meetings. What are your goals? What are your aspirations? Are you good with where you are, or are you looking to expand and grow? I'd love to dive deeper into that.
Is it me first now again?
I think so.
Oh man. We are looking to grow. In fact, we recently grew to Charleston, South Carolina. So right now we've got flight clubs in Denver, in Boulder, and in Charleston. We'd like to continue to grow both in both of those cities outside of Denver. We've got some pretty aggressive goals through the end of this year to launch, I think, 12 more flight clubs.
Wow.
So that'll bring
Okay.
us to almost over 300 women actively flying with Hey Birdie each month, which is super exciting. We'd like to double that next year. So our intention is to definitely take us to at least 1 to 2 more cities in 2025. And also to grow our supplemental programming. So we have everything is bird pun. So we have biannual migrations. We have a migration in the spring and a migration in the fall. And this is immersive programming for women that are looking to go a little bit deeper into our programming pillars. So this is a 6-week immersive program that happens twice a year. In addition to that, we mentioned earlier, we're doing teen flight clubs, and we'd love to focus on growing that community as well as our tween, in that we both have a 10 and 11-year-old that are like, hey, what about
Yes,
us?
yeah.
We need this too. So we want to grow in that demographic as well. And then some of our other super fun passion projects is what we call our formations, which is our one-off events. So we like to kind of nudge or challenge the narrative on a lot of different things. So what we've done is we've turned upside down a couple of Hallmark holiday months, which is Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. So every year in February, we host an event called The Power of Pleasure, where we gather and explore all things pleasure, especially those things that are taboo. And in May, we gather women to turn upside down the traditional Mother's Day celebration, and instead we get together and burn shit. So we
Love
call
it.
it the maternal burn.
Love it.
We call it the maternal burn, and it's this open invitation to really explore your relationship with a maternal archetype. And in doing so, a lot of people have a lot of stories that they need to share and unite and heal. So
Yeah.
these are a couple of our highlight events that we really look forward to each year.
Well, it looks like you've got something too. Registration's about to open on your harvest
Our
migration.
harvest
Yeah,
migration,
tell us about that.
yes.
It's opening, I think, in like a week.
Mhm.
So timing of our migrations are spring and fall, and harvest is the really looking at nature again and how we're turning over the soil to bring up or process what needs to be brought to community, brought to the verbal exchange, so that when we head into our wintering phase, we're not going in with this heavy load. We're going in sort of relieved of that weight, so that we can winter in a lighter way, a healthier way, so that then when we come around for our spring migration, it's a reemergence. So like thinking of the first sprouts that come up from the soil that you turned over before we went into wintering. And so we try to partner our migrations in that way, pair them up. And so going into this migration, um, we don't have all the words to it yet, but it is going to be about transitions and how to grieve those and heal those in community, and creating ceremony around healing in that process. So a lot of the inspiration so many of the women that come into Hey Birdie are experiencing some sort of transition, whether it's a heart transition of divorce, death, or loss of some other sort, or a professional transition or personal. And they're like, I want to change up who I'm surrounding myself with, or I'm changing my career. And these are little moments of celebration that we tend to neglect or we steam through. And so we really want to bring attention to that all of these moments should be celebrated in our life. And so similar to that, we also offer programming that's, and I shouldn't say we publicly offer it yet, we've done it for our own girls, in doing first moon celebrations and gathering together as women and children and celebrating your first menses. And then also dark moon, when you have a menopause, when you experience menopause. I've been counting down Heather's menopause day. We were so close last year and I was so ready to have like this celebration, and then her period came out.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Cancel the invitation, cancel the save the date.
How do we do it? So really similar to what we do with pleasure and maternal burn, looking to take those things that we tend to just be like, oh yeah, I finished that job, or yes, I got divorced, and celebrating them.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I think, going back to the period for younger girls too, and, menopause also, like, we look at those as kind of traumatizing as women, right?
Yeah.
Like as a young girl, I think I started my period in 5th grade and I was one of my first friends, and it was like this shame and embarrassment and like, oh my gosh, like, hiding the tampons in your pocket and just being really sneaky about it instead of celebrating, like you're becoming a woman, like, this next step. And so same with menopause, like, just celebrating the times that we look at and we're like, oh God, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be like, oh, but still, I love putting a different spin on all of that. So I have another question. What do your partners think of your business and how do they support you? And, I'm just curious on that side, like if they've been able to really get behind what you ladies are all about, or if they've just kind of, taken a back seat to watching, or how that's been going for you all.
That's a great question. My husband, Michael, so I'm from Boston and he's from the Midwest, let's say. And when I met him, he was living in northern Wyoming. And I moved to northern Wyoming after being in Boston, Denver, San Francisco. So huge culture shock for me. And he was a cowboy at that time. And so everyone that I got to meet through him were cowboys or girls. And I'm allergic to horses. Like there was just no element of connection. And we laugh about the day where one day I woke up and I'm like, friends. And I left the house and I walked to downtown Sheridan and I went into the first coffee shop I found and I introduced myself to the guy behind the counter and said, I need friends.
Yeah.
And he was my age and he's still my dear, dear friend. And he said, my wife owns the boutique next door.
Oh, I love it.
And so I walked next door and I introduced it. I said, your husband sent me to you. And she is like one of my heart friends, right? And then I opened a yoga studio, the first one in northern Wyoming, upstairs from their building. And so my husband is very used to me being like, this is what I need.
Yeah.
So I'm going to build it. And so he's always like, he, in a very healthy way, we'll say, is my enabler. In that, like, okay, Jess needs something, so she's going to do it or get it. And he's along for that ride. The other part that we like to joke, my husband's in oil and gas, but on the NEPA side of things. So his job is specifically to protect the birds. And so it's just always fun to be like, well, and also fund the birds, fund the business.
I love that you say that, Jessica, because it just reminded me of Jenny too, because I think Jenny is very similar in that respect. Like her husband is always just like, okay. I mean, I think when you have an entrepreneurial mind, like you have to have that partner that's like, I'm going to let you do you. Like if that's what you need, I'm there to support you. And Heather, I'm guessing your partner is the same.
Very much so. It's very much what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Okay, right on. Here we go. And occasionally my husband and Michael will connect and be like, so is it next year that we're retiring and Hey Birdie goes global? I mean, they very much believe and have every confidence in us, probably almost more than we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome. But you need that, my husband,
much.
to Lori's point, where I feel incredibly lucky. Those aren't conversations you have before you get married, right? Like it just so happens that that's how he is. And it's been amazing. So yeah.
Jenny, you
great.
should add that to the list of questions for your daughters as well. Like I haven't meant to one. I need to actually put it list of things to ask your husband or partner before you
Yeah.
get married. Will you support me if I?
Yes.
That's a really good
Totally.
one. I like
Because I
that.
think about it too, like finances is such a huge thing. We never talked about that. We're just lucky that we are pretty much on the same page.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
when
Jess,
people
I think
ask,
that's a Hey Birdie ebook, I think.
yeah,
Give that a
Good
mark.
idea.
totally. Yeah, when people ask like, well, how are you still married after this many years? I'm like, I hate to say this. A lot of it is just pure freaking luck. Like I could have chose differently and he could have chose differently. But yeah, I mean, and not to say that we don't have fun and work on it and stuff, but a lot of it is luck and you're changing together.
And it's choice, right? I think that in anything that we do, it's choice. Like, do I want to be here today? Do I want to continue building this business? It's choice.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
Because we get distracted easily.
Yeah, for sure.
So to kind of close out this awesome conversation we're having with you ladies, I always like to ask what you're most proud of. And I'm curious to see, if you guys have the same answer, different. Heather, why don't you go first? See, I made that easy. I just called her out. I was like,
I know, I love
I
it.
appreciate that. Thank you. What am I most proud of? Friendships, especially when you're adult, are hard. It's hard to make friends, especially friendships that are really worthwhile. And what we've been able to witness, the relationships that have occurred because of the space that Hey Birdie has created in flight clubs and all of our other programming, and the friendships that have formed, and to see women hold each other in that way, and to witness their courage. And now I'm saying so many things, so I'm going to back up and just say the space that we create and how women choose to take advantage of that, whether it's being courageous in a big ask or being courageous in a big share, or just saying, can anybody hang out with me this week? Because it's going to be a really hard week for me. Just being able to witness that space and know that space is continuing to be held, and inviting women in this way is such an honor. And the countless stories that we have, and the exchanges that women have in our spaces is magic, and I'm so honored to be a part of it.
Very cool. Jessica, you get to follow that up.
I think I'll give a specific story to back it up, because I would agree it is the connection that the women have in the community. Yesterday, we invited some birds over to help us with a video testimonial, and 3 of them are in the same flock together came, and just to see the love and connection that they have for each other and support. And then later in that day, one of them was Marco Poloing with me and saying, like, I have found the best women, the best friends of my life. And it's because of Hey Birdie. And my daughter Hazel, who's 13, was in the car listening to Marco Polo, and she responded to it. And she said, well, Lisa, aren't you so sad that you're in your 40s and you just found these friends?
Oh.
And Lisa said, no, I wouldn't have been ready for these friends.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great
And so to hear like her own personal growth, and then her to be able to articulate, like, I wasn't in the space of like my body to be that kind of friend that these women have invited me to be a part of.
Wow.
Oh, I love that.
That's incredible. I mean, I think she makes a great point, right? I think you meet certain people at different phases of your life that makes sense, right? And if you would have met them in your earlier years, you may not have had the connection that you currently have with them based on where you were and then where you are now. So I think that's incredible. Wow. Well, so let's kind of end on you. We talked about your harvest coming up, but how do people get in touch with you? How do they show up and be a part of the flock? Give us all the details.
So they shine their bird signal in the air.
Yeah, like the Batman.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm. Or they go, caw.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
At 8
You
p.m.
say
and we
caca, I
would
gotta
come
say,
running.
so my girlfriends and I always called ourselves the Eagles. And we would like, before we would like go out to a bar. I mean, we did this in our 20s. We would caca. We would be like, caca. And like that was like our like sound. And like if we were at the bar, usually a little bit tipsy, we'd be like, caca. And we'd all like, I love that. Just saying.
That's
I love it.
hilarious.
It's like, that's perfect, Lori. It was like cue the bird story time
Yeah.
because it always
Yes.
happens. Somebody's got a bird story. It's
And everybody had a
amazing.
bird name. Like one of my friends is, a pharmacist. We call her Dr. Eagle. And we had another one that was, Doctor, or not doctor, but like, Eagle Fancy Pants or so. I mean, it goes on and on. So, we gotta
Lori,
get
it sounds like you should be in a flock.
I mean,
know, I know.
I feel like I need to show up to the next one.
Yeah.
I feel like my
Mhm.
inner bird is like,
Calling.
It's
Bird
ready
call.
to fly. It's ready to fly.
So as
Okay,
far
sorry, how do people
as
find you,
finding
ladies?
us, oh,
Yeah,
thumbs up,
find-
Heather.
Thumbs up.
As far as finding us, there's the socials, the Instagram, there's all the connection elements through there. But our upcoming flights, August 12th, is in Denver. And so we would want to connect and have a bird call with anybody in the next week to 10 days. And then August 14th is our Boulder Flight Club, which, look at that, Lori, that's perfect for Louisville.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
totally.
And you know what? I love that it's coming up so quickly, and I'm going to get this episode out super soon because I'm excited to be able to share this with people because I want them
Thank
to have
you.
the opportunity to jump on those events. But what's your website so people can reach out to your website?
Birdie.co.
That easy.
Perfect. And we will post that too. So people will be able to see it.
Wonderful.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, ladies. It has been so wonderful chatting with you, getting to know you personally, and being able to, I think more than anything, let other women know and moms that they're not alone and that they can find a safe space with each other, and hopefully by joining one of your events and becoming a part of your flock. So,
Thank you so
thanks
much,
very
Lori
much.
and Jenny.
Yeah.
Thank you. So nice meeting you.